Something in your mind recognized that something was off, even if you weren't conscious of it yet, even if you couldn't name it. Your subconscious sensed it, and that says a lot. You may think you struggle with focus because you lack discipline, because your attention slips, because staying with one thing feels harder than it used to. But what you're dealing with isn't a personal failure. It's overstimulation, a quiet, almost invisible epidemic of the technological age. And knowing this distinction is a game changer. You don't know it yet, but it matters more than it seems. Because when the problem is framed as a personal failure, the default response becomes self-punishment. You exert more effort, more pressure. You apply more force. And that only deepens the fatigue you're already carrying. But when the problem is overstimulation, knowing that it is, your point of reference changes. And when that reference point shifts, your biological response changes, your neurological response changes, and the way forward changes with it. Let me be clear. What you are experiencing is not a character flaw. It is a predictable response to the environment you are living in. Your nervous system was not built for constant alerts, constant switching, constant engagement. It was built for rhythm, a rhythm that humanity has lost. Engage, withdraw, attend, rest. When that rhythm disappears, attention does not improve. It erodes, quietly. There is an old saying that captures this more clearly than modern language ever has. Where there is no quiet, understanding leaves, and this should be taken literally. Understanding requires space. It requires staying with a thought long enough for meaning to form. When your mind never settles, understanding cannot take hold. And when understanding weakens, focus goes with it. So when stimulation becomes constant, your attention weakens. Not because you are broken, but because attention depends on contrast. Just as your eyes need darkness to recognize light, your mind needs quiet to recognize what deserves focus. When everything demands your attention, nothing holds it. Over time, you adapt to this state. You become reactive instead of intentional. You respond instead of choosing. And focus starts to feel like strain. This is where you may be misreading what you feel. You might call it distraction. You might call it laziness. You might tell yourself you lack motivation. But what you are actually experiencing is attentional fatigue. Fatigue does not always show up as exhaustion. At first, it feels like restlessness, impatience, the urge to reach for something else, even when nothing is wrong. Attention is not sustained by effort. It is sustained by recovery. And this is the part no one explains to you. When recovery disappears, effort becomes painful. And when effort becomes painful, you assume you are weak. You are not weak. You are overloaded. This is why you can feel mentally drained after doing very little. It's not because the task demanded too much, but because your attention never settled long enough to engage fully. Partial attention costs more energy than full focus. Constant switching drains you faster than sustained effort ever could. Your mind keeps reorienting without resolution. That is exhausting. There is another saying that embodies this perfectly. Even the capable grow weary when the mind has no rest. Skill does not override biology. Wisdom does not cancel fatigue. Without rest, even strong minds deteriorate. So, you try to cope. You add background noise, music while working, videos while eating, audio while resting. It feels comforting, but it actually reinforces the problem. Noise becomes a way to avoid stillness, because stillness now feels unfamiliar. and unfamiliar sensations often register as discomfort. So you stay occupied, not because you are productive, but because silence feels heavy. A restless mind looks for noise. A settled mind looks for clarity. And right now, clarity feels distant because you rarely give your mind the conditions it needs to settle. Stillness brings things to the surface: unfinished thoughts, unprocessed emotions, things you postponed by staying busy. Instead of meeting those moments, you drown them out. And over time, the ability to sit with your own thoughts weakens. That is why silence can feel uncomfortable now. Not because it is harmful, but because it asks you to use a capacity you have not exercised in a long time. Unused attention feels awkward when reintroduced, like unused muscles when they are finally engaged again. The discomfort is not danger, it is readaptation. This is also why many solutions disappoint you. Productivity systems promise control, motivation promises energy, discipline promises structure. But none of those work if attention has not been restored. You cannot optimize what has not recovered. The answer is not eliminating technology, and it is not forcing focus through willpower. It begins much smaller than that. It begins with reducing unbroken exposure, not dramatically, not aggressively, intentionally. There is wisdom in this old principle. If you guard your moments, you preserve your strength. Strength is not only physical, it is mental, it is emotional, it is attentional. When you create moments without input, your nervous system recalibrates. Contrast returns, sensitivity returns, small spaces of quiet rebuild capacity, a walk without audio, a meal without screens, a pause without reaching. They feel insignificant, but trust me, they accumulate. And slowly, attention begins to return without force. What you often call discipline is actually the result of recovered attention. When attention is restored, focus no longer feels forced. It feels available. And when focus is available, effort becomes sustainable again. This connects directly to why silence feels uncomfortable now, especially if you stay constantly occupied. Because discomfort is often the signal that capacity is returning, not that something is wrong. This is something worth noticing. This is Mrs. Morale. If this helped you see something more clearly, sit with it for a while. Clarity doesn't need to be rushed.